gave me a ride back to headquarters. But the radio operator, he came down and the chute collapsed on top of him. So he's crawling out from under the chute, and he gets out of there. Here's about 4 GIs with their gun. You never knew who you were with, because in that Battle of Bulge, the Germans had a lot of U.S. uniforms, and so they didn't take any chances. And that was about it, you know. Oh, I felt so sorry for those guys. It was, they didn't have the right equipment. They all had like summer uniforms, and they were in this sub-zero weather, freezing her tail off. And when I got back to the headquarters, and they were bidding on my what most they wanted the boots, you know. I said, yeah, I'll take them. I can get all I want, you know. So they took me into Liège, and I stayed there overnight. And then the next day, they flew me on a shuttle airplane back to England. The radio operator, the engineer, the ball turret, and myself. You wonder why, you know, you really do. And here I'm 84 years old now, and I never thought I'd live to be that long. I'm not in the best of health, but I'm not in the worst either. After you get off the flak leave, you're sent back to your squadron, and every morning, if someone was sick, for example, or if they lost a man out of their crew for one reason or another, they would come in, and I flew probably 10 missions as a tail gunner, and then they had me in the waist gun for a couple of missions, and then they put me in as a toggelier. Now, toggelier is well, they ran out of bombardiers is what happened. They were losing so many men. And they told us as a toggelier, all you do is, when we get on the bomb run, watch the squadron leader. And when he drops, you drop. And so that's what I did for that time. Well, you know, if it's like out on Lake Winnebago there, it's a pretty good sized lake, and you can run into some rough weather. And when you get into this flak barrage, your plane would be flipping, you know, just because of unstable air. And a lot of planes went down. You had to fly so, it seemed like maybe 20 feet between the next plane and yourself to keep a smaller target. And some people went down because of that. Everybody had a job to do. I was the armor on the ship, which meant I had to learn about bombs and loading bombs and everything like that. And we, talking about bombs, one time we were going in to the we went over the target, and the damn bombs didn't release. So the pilot says, Shorty, they call me Shorty, says, Shorty, get out there and kick those bombs out. And that catwalk is about that wide, you know. And here you're at 30,000 feet, and they open the bomb bay doors, and you walk out there carrying an oxygen bottle, because you had to stay on oxygen, and get out there and trip all those levers. That was something. I prayed a lot. Prayed many a rosary. Yeah, when you got back from a mission, most of them were usually about dark. It took so long to form, you know, to get a formation together, that you probably wouldn't leave England maybe till about 9 o'clock in the morning. And you've been up in the air an hour or more. and we would go over then and come back, and then everybody had to go into a briefing room, which was a nice big room, and everybody had to take a couple shots of whiskey. They had it all out there, poured and everything, and then they come around and, well, what did you see? Did you see this? Did you see that? So forth, to try to get an idea of what the casualties were and how they occurred. You didn't celebrate too much while you were subject to flying all the time, because you would get back on the base and then have a dinner, and then you'd fool around in the barracks a little bit, and you got in bed maybe about 9 o'clock, because you never knew tomorrow morning if you were going to get up at a given time. The P-51s, that was a beautiful airplane too, and it was it could outdo the Germans. And when they would get in a dogfight, they'd get them. They would get them. There wasn't much of a fight, because they were so lightly armored. The German Air Force, they never thought they'd get off the continent of Europe. So they didn't have the right equipment for long flights, and the capacity as far as fuel was concerned was very limited as well. So that gave our fighters a heck of a good chance. Well, they never got that close. I only really shot at one, and I don't think I scared him, because it was, I guess probably about February. And this is when the Germans were experimenting with their rocket ships, and they only had fuel for, I think, about 3 minutes. They just go up, roll on, and come down. But as far as being shot at, I was not. I've seen a lot of them being shot at, but again, I was lucky. Sally was the one that we went down with, but I don't recall it because I was always on a different ship. And that was a thing that you wouldn't appreciate it unless you experienced it. It was, you trained with a group of guys for 4 months, and you got to know them and how they reacted. I'd fly, after we got knocked down, and fly in a different crew all the time. Some guys, again, would be very excitable, you know. Yeah. Other guys, just like the engineer on our original crew, you couldn't get him excited. You know, he lived for the moment, you know. Well, he was a pretty smart guy, in that he had been college trained and was in management with the school system. And like a lot of guys like that, he had girlfriends all over the place. And he had some good times over there too. It really made you feel good. Here you're getting all ready to go on a mission, you know, and we never knew what the target was until we got into the briefing room. So he would say, well, we're probably going to go to Berlin today. He said, you ever been there? You know, and you'd say, yeah, and I hope I don't ever do. And he would say, well, he says, probably not all of us are going to get back. He said, I've enjoyed all you people. And he said, I just want you to know that if anything happens, I'll be praying for you. And just, I don't know if he meant it or if he was just talking, you know. In the briefing room, you go into this big briefing room, and they have, the walls are all covered until they pull the curtain, and they have the big map up there. And they'd show you where you were going and how you're going to get there, and where the flak was and where the fighters were and all this and that. And what was I going to tell you? Oh yeah, the thing that really got to me in those briefing rooms, those damn Germans knew we were coming. They would be broadcasting over channels that we could pick up, and then say, 427 will be expecting you right about 9:30, and we'd be waiting. And you mean there was no secrets? You just got in and dug it out, that's all. Oh, it was about the 20th mission. We were in a group, our group, there was 4 planes in the group. Our group had incendiaries. We had a whole bomb bay full of incendiaries. And the group ahead of us had nothing but gasoline. And you know, like you see these, they used to see the big fuel oil tanks around. They had those hooked into the bomb bay, and they were full of gasoline. And then we went into Berlin that day, and they went in, maybe got 2 minutes ahead of us, and dropped all that gasoline. See what they were trying to do, the Germans were all down in the undergrounds, in the subways. And the only way they kill them was to suffocate them. So after they went through, we dropped our bombs, and no, you never hear about that, but it happened. To tell you the truth, I never thought about it too much, except when we were on the bomb room going in, because you knew it was going to be tough. But other than that, I never thought about it too much, you know. You had a job to do, and if you had to shoot at somebody, you shot at them, and that was all part of the job, you know. You know, they never told, I mean, that wasn't the talk on the base. Somebody'd say, well, where's old John? Well, he didn't make it. That's all it was said, you know. You knew that certain people were being killed, and you were likely to get killed because of the numbers of casualties, but it was, you were there to do a job, and you did it. And it was a long swim home, you know. They would show you every once in a while. Well, part of the training was that they would show you actual footage of battles. And they did that because one of the big things as a gunner was you had to have instant reaction to movies or be able to identify different aircraft, American or British, or and that's another thing. We would get up, as I mentioned before, pretty early in the morning, and a lot of times we would still be forming at daybreak. And these British guys would go over all night and bomb. And they would be coming back, flying through our formation, you know, trying to get home. I remember one guy, I thought, God damn, he damn near hit us. But they, I don't know if they couldn't see it or what, or did we happen to come out of a cloud or something. We got to go into, they'd give you sometimes 3 or 4 days off, and you could get off the base. And I went into London 3 or 4 times. And one time, I was at night, and I was sleeping in this hotel, and man, oh man, the Germans came over and bombed it. And I laid in that bed just shaking, you know. But they didn't hit this hotel I was in. But oh man, they tore London up something terrible. And you couldn't get around, you know, but we all wanted to go there. And I tell you, about 10 years ago, I guess it was, I went back there with our bomb group. They got a bunch of guys from the bomb group, and we took our wives and went over there. And they had they opened up all the bases to us. The buses would come around, and you could catch a bus to Mendenhall or any of the big bases. And the guys out there were on the flight line, and you could go out, you know, and walk through the planes and so forth and so on. And it was, I remember one time one of these British guys got me aside and he says, "You'll never know how much we love you people." We came back on a Liberty ship, and that was an experience. We, I don't know if they were fooling around or what, but for one night, I bet you they dropped, the ship we were on dropped, 40 bombs, cans, you know, and you shaped the whole ship. And it was right during a Atlantic storm. And we would go down, boom, you know, onto the next wave. And the whole ship would just shake like that, you know. And it was, I'll never forget that. You went back again to a replacement depot, and I was assigned to an air base in Santa Ana, California. And there they had us doing, you know, they're doing anything. That's another interesting thing. We would have to get up in the morning early and get all the ships gassed up. You had to start the engines, be sure everything was fine. And I'll never forget, one time I was checking out an engine. These were fighters, and you had to run them up to a given RPM and hold them there for just a little bit to be sure that they were operating correctly. And I was doing that, and the damn ship jumped the chocks. And here I was going right at that plane in front of me. And I bet I got within 10 feet of it before I finally got enough pressure on the brakes to stop it. Well, they put up on the bulletin board every morning guys who were shipping out, you know, one way or the other. And one time my name was on the board that I was being discharged, and got on a train. During the war, boy, those trains were something else. I rode a train from California to Indianapolis, Indiana. And these were real old trains. They were terrible. And being short as I am, I was able to get under a seat and stretch out, which was a good position to be in if you wanted to sleep. And so I think we were in 4 or 5 days on that train. You know, the Army to me was a fun trip. I really enjoyed everything that happened other than when you were fighting, you know. My mother, I come from a family of 6. I was the oldest. And when I went into the service, she always was concerned about me. And it so happened that one of our neighbors had a friend who got in trouble. She was pregnant, and she was going to, she didn't know what she'd do with this kid. She couldn't take care of him. So my mom said, made a deal with the Lord, if you can do such a thing. She said, if you bring Joe home, I'll take care of this kid. So they adopted him. So he was the 5th member of our family. I went to a place in Chicago. They called it the Human Engineering Institute. And they advertised that if you would come up there and take their battery of tests, that they could tell you what you would be most likely to succeed in, the line of work. So I thought, what the hell? I know I don't want to do labor all my life. And we took the test, and they told me, from what we can see, you would be most likely to succeed as a sales engineer. And I said, well, where do I go to learn about that? And they said, Marquette is a good school. So I got on a train and came up to Marquette, stayed a couple of days, talked around the campus and so forth. Came back to Chicago, and I said, what's number 2? Because I had no real schooling. High school to me was a ball, because all you went to high school for was to get maybe a foreman's job in a steel mill, because the steel mills just would take anybody that could write their name. And so they said, well, you still have a lot of mechanical aptitude and you have a sales personality, so why don't you go to Indiana University, get a marketing degree, and then sell something mechanical? Fine. So I went down there and loved it. Oh man, I had found my place, you know. And I graduated in 3.5 years. And then when I went to work for Studebaker.